seeing the screen that says installing and running CTAS for the first time?
Yes.
All righty. Okay, so for everyone attending, this is the first time I've tried to do one of these classes completely online. So as Scott mentioned, please put your questions in the Q&A session or Q&A area. I will try to answer them as we're going. If it gets going way too fast, just feel free to type it and let me know. Usually I'm in a classroom with people and I can judge a whole lot by expressions. I can't see any of you. So the other thing is about 45 minutes to an hour in, we will take a real quick 1 or 2 minute break. So let's get started. So installing and running CTAS for the first time. This is not on data migration. That's got some differences in it. This is just, you're going to start running CTAS. So first of all, you're going to go to the Minnesota State Auditor's website. On here, you go to the For Local Officials section. You're going to choose Small City and Town Accounting System. That's CTAS. Scroll down at the next screen that comes up. You're going to choose the order form and you can fill it out, print it out, and get it mailed in with a check and the address and everything is on there. When that comes back, you're going to be able to download CTAS. And to do that, and this also is for all the updates on CTAS that are going to come out, you're going to go to the state auditor's website. You're going to go to the Forms tab. Once you click on Forms, you're going to see this box pop up and you're going to choose State Auditor Form Entry System. As you use CTAS more, you'll hear us talk about SAFES. SAFES is basically the acronym. There's lots of them you're going to discover as a township official for the form entry system. We get in here and you log in. You'll see over to the side, it talks about your typical login name is first name dot last name, and case doesn't matter in the login. However, for your password, it does. If you forget your password, there's a place down to choose forgot password. Actually, they moved it. It's right here. And you're going to choose login. All right, right there. Once you log in, you're going to have a tab area up at the top. The only place you see the tab is where it says contact info, but all of these are technically called tabs. You're going to fill these boxes. These boxes will already be filled in. All you need to do is verify, make sure that the information is correct and current. So we've got a question, do we need to order and download CTAS again if the old treasurer already has it downloaded on the township computer? Well, it depends. And I know that's going to be a really bad answer. If they've got the current version of CTAS, no, you do not need to download it again. If they don't have the current version, yes, you're going to need to update. So I will show you where this is when we get into the program in a few minutes. All right, so once you've verified everything, you're going to go to the CTAS tab up here at the top. And this is where you're going to see license entity. You're going to see your township name here. And most of us are going to use the CTAS web installer. That's the most common. It does require internet hookup. Once you get that, you're going to click it. Now at this point, what's going to happen is it depends on how your computer is set up. I cannot give you one thing that works all the time for everybody because I don't know what operating system, as far as operating systems will vary a little, browsers will vary, setup will vary. You're going to see, what I want you to remember is you're going to see something that says CTAS Web Installer down in the lower left of your computer screen. All right. How do we update our name from a prior clerk or treasurer? Oh, good question. So let me go back here. Let's back up a couple screens. Right here on the contact information system in SAFES, there's two things you've got to do. In here, you can update the contact information and the name. Now, if you have trouble with that, you will want to email the state auditor or call them. And I think it's GI 3000 is the name of the document. It's got their name and phone number on there. And once you get a hold of them, that way they'll get everything updated for you. So moving forward again, once you see this CTAS web installer, you're going to go in, open, click, run. All the terminology is a little bit different, but basically you're going to run this program. Now, the state auditor's office does have a couple of nice videos on what your different screens will look like in action. Um, I know it's prior versions, but a lot of that part's relevant. Okay, so if you're having issues getting to this install piece, watch their little 2-minute video on the CTAS page. If you see this screen come up, hey, you're doing it right. You're going to have to click I agree and then install, and you'll probably see something like this come up that says, do you want to allow the app to make changes? Yes, you do. You'll see a setup progress bar go, and then it says the installation has been completed. You're going to close that. You're going to log out of the Safes download area. Look at your desktop and you should see an icon that looks like this, says CTAS 2021. One hint, if your icon says CTAS 2020 or CTAS 8, you will need to do some upgrading. You'll have to get to the current version. And the login at Safes that we talked about will get you to that point. You're going to double click this icon. You'll see a screen that looks something like this come up. First, you're going to type in your name. I just wrote the name sample here. And then second, you're going to click login. You'll come to a screen like this. Now, this next screen I show you is probably the most important one I want you to remember for today. I kind of blew some things up, took out some of the white space. When we're going through class, if I say it's on the menu bar, that means this very top bar at the top. If I say you want to click an icon, those are the pictures in the next row down. If I talk about a tab, that's over here where the tabs are. Sometimes there'll be multiple tabs open. Sometimes you'll just see one that says the name of whatever we're in, and then you can add something if you like. And if I talk about looking for a button to click, that's going to be down at the lower area of the screen. So those are the 4 terms you'll probably hear the most today. Go to the menu bar, click the icon, click tabs, click buttons. Sometimes when I reference a menu bar, I'll just say choose accounting. And you can see accounting is right up here at the top. All right. Now moving forward, this example, remember, assumes you are not migrating old data, but starting out fresh. When your instructions say something like select admin from the menu bar, select the admin icon, and select the edit system information tab, that means you're going to left click with the mouse. All right. When I say select, I mean left click with the mouse. If I want you to right click, I will say right click with the mouse, but by default, I mean left click. So when we move to edit system information, which we just covered here, you'll go to admin, the admin icon, and edit system information. You're going to enter all of the fields that have blue. Those are required. But at this point, it's a really good idea to put your federal ID number and your state ID number in so that at the end of the year, when it comes time to run W-2s, you don't have to remember to go do it. It's also helpful if somebody calls and wants to know what it is. You've got it on your computer. That's a real quick place to look it up on. You don't have to remember where you wrote it on a card or anything like that. The OSA code is required. The only place to get your OSA code is from the state auditor. And I am guessing that comes with the information when you originally purchased CTAS. It has been so many years since we bought CTAS, mine just came with it back years and years ago. You're going to choose Save. And if you see this window that says System Updated Successfully, you know you've got your CTAS started and ready to run. All right. So you're going to choose OK. Now, we're going to set up some things from your chart of accounts. We're going to set up some vendors. We're going to practice setting up a lot of different things and running through the system. At this point, I'm going to move to the actual CTAS program. You will want this video for future reference. One idea is after you've seen this, if you have to go back to the video, write down the times of the different tasks we're going to cover so that you don't have to rewatch it every single time. If you want to look up just receipts or something, you know, hey, go to time 30 minutes in or whatever that happens to be. Today, we're going to keep moving, but this video is going to be available so you can start and stop it as many times as you want. Some basic information to have on hand when you're getting started. We're going to want the chart of accounts, preferably the newest one. Remitters, those are the people who are sending us money, names and address as desired. And your vendors. Now with your vendors, one of the important things is to get that W-9 from them. If you get the W-9 before you even send them a check, it's really nice. You're going to see in CTAS where we put that information. So at the end of the year, when it comes time to do 1099s, you already have it checked if they need one, and you've got their ID numbers. Everything's right there. All right, so at this point, let me get into CTAS, and you'll see I've got the example township in here. So once we've gotten to this point, let's go into accounting. Accounting is where we're going to do most of our day-to-day work. All right. And we're going to enter a couple of vendors because we know we're going to have to pay bills. So I've got some information that I'm going to use as example information. I've got a few. You only see a black screen. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I forgot to hit share. Sorry about that. Oh, goodness. Where?
Maybe
This one, I
stop
believe.
share and then, yep, that's perfect.
All righty. Okay, so I will go back. Thank you very much for mentioning that. Okay, so under accounting, where we were just a second ago, we started out, so far what you missed is seeing this admin screen. That's it, where everything's typed in. So now we're going to go into accounting and choose vendors. Here you're going to look at the tabs. There's a vendor list. Well, you can see I don't have any active vendors. Keep in mind, if this active vendors gets unchecked, that brings up vendors who maybe you've turned off in the past. So make sure there's a checkbox in that active vendors when you've got, so you can see them on your screen. So let's add a vendor. Now these are fictitious ID numbers. These are not real. I'm just putting in, as you can see, a bunch of 9s. We're going to start with ABC Gravel Company. We can add an address. You get to see my wonderful typing, 5th. And this is an example, Minnesota. Actually, the zip code should start with a 5, shouldn't it? Now you can add the contact name and phone number as you wish. You can add an email address. On this one, I made a mistake on the name because I happen to have the W-9 that says this is incorporated. That means I don't need a 1099 for this particular vendor. So I'm going to uncheck this little box and save. That way at the end of the year, my vendor list, I can tell it just print those with the 1099s and it's going to come up. So let's add another vendor. I'll do all zeros with this one, and this will be XYZ grading. And you would take definitely much more time than I am to fill these in with the proper letters and such. Now in this case, XYZ grading, I can see on my 1099 on the W-9 form that they submitted, this is a sole proprietor. So they do need a 1099 form. All right. So I'm going to leave that box checked in this case. And the last one I'm going to add is an electric company. So and we're not going to worry about spelling because I'm much more interested in having you know how the program works. Now with the power company, I've got a thing, they are a corporation. So again, I don't need a 1099. Some townships only have to send out 1 or 2 1099s. So if that's, don't worry if that's what you're discovering. We're going to save. And then when we go back to our vendor list tab, we're going to see here's our 3 vendors that are typed in. We can see that they do or don't require 1099s and that these are all active. Remember I said make sure active is checked because if we unclick active and hit search, we can't find our vendors. All right. So one of the key things is to make sure whether active is on or off. So we've got a few vendors in here. Next thing that we want to do is we're going to go to our chart of accounts. The chart of accounts is something you're going to go to quite often in townships. because account numbers will need updating, object codes will need updating. We just want to get started. So we're going to pick out our funds first of all. Well, the general fund is turned on because that's required all the time. We want to choose the road and bridge fund and activate it. So we highlight it here and we choose active down at the bottom. If my mouse will move there, and you'll see that it says the fund has been activated. We'll tell it okay. Let's say we want to add a fire fund. The fire fund is typically Fund 225. So we're going to choose the new fund tab. Now notice we've got double rows of tabs here. The bottom row is what's what's active. So we're going to choose new fund and we're going to put in 225. We want it to be active and we're going to say fire fund. All right. We hit save. The fund's been saved successfully. We'll tell it okay. We go back to funds and we can see over here on the check marks where they're at. Now, one thing, if you don't use all the rest of these, there's a lot of stuff in here that you may not need. Remember, CTAS is designed for cities and towns. We're going to click on the word active. Everything moved and went away. We're going to click on it again. And now the 3 funds we use are right there at the top. We can see the gray bars are headings. We don't use the gray bar numbers. So like 200, we're not going to use that one, but anything between 201 and 299, we're free to use. We're going to see this more in the account numbers. So now that we've got our 3 funds turned on, we're going to go to our account numbers. And in our account numbers, as we scroll down, keep an eye on the right side of the screen. We're going to see, hey, there's a few numbers that are turned on already. So interest earning is already active, which is good because most townships have some interest earned. The transfers from general, enterprise, and governmental funds are all active. Okay, I saw the question. Should the funds match the levy funds? No, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit when we start putting some balances in here. So no, your funds are not going to match your levy funds. Now, not a CTAS question, but what difference does it make if the vendor is incorporated or a sole proprietor? If he's an independent or independent contractor and not an employee, shouldn't he get a 1099? Well, that all depends. When a W-9 is obtained from your different vendors, it tells you if they need it tells you what type of a business they are. And by IRS statute, only those who are not incorporated, and I honestly have to look at the form to remember because some LLCs get them, some LLCs don't, some S corporations do, some S corporations don't. It does tell you whether, based on that, you'll know if you have to send them a 1099. The other thing to keep in mind, if you're ever in doubt, if somebody needs a 1099, send it to them. All that means is, yeah, they got an extra piece of paper they can throw away. All right. So if you don't know for sure, send them a 1099. I guarantee most of them will call and say, hey, you didn't need to do this. They should never be mad. Most of them won't even spend time with the phone call and just drop it in the trash. And then you can make sure and ask them for a 1099 for the next year. Now back to our account numbers. In this interfund transfers in here, transfer from an enterprise fund, unless you're a township who needs that, you can highlight that one and inactivate it because you really aren't going to need that. Transferring from the governmental fund is usually the one that we use. I understand sometimes people like to use the transfer from general fund. That's also okay when you're transferring money between funds. So we see some of those are turned on. We get down. Now the 3,000 numbers are for receipts. Anything that starts with a 30,000, I should say. Anything starting with a 3 is a receipt. Anything starting with a 4 is an expense. That's a difference you'll need to remember. Sometimes you'll be trying to use a number and remember you've entered the wrong part of CTAS and it won't let you put a receipt number where it doesn't belong or an expense number where it doesn't belong. Back to some account numbers. We're back up to the top of the account numbers. We're going to turn on the current ad valorem taxes. We also want to turn on the delinquent taxes. Now, you can do these one at a time. I also want to turn on the mobile home tax. But you could also hold down the control key on your keyboard and click so that all 3 of these are highlighted. And while we're at it, we look through this page and say, hold down the control key. Let's turn on the gravel tax. Let's turn on penalties and interest on ad valorem taxes, maybe the forfeited tax sale apportionments. If you have some building permits, if you have alcoholic beverage licenses, those are where we're going to start. We're going to, now that they're highlighted, we have to use active. A lot of us like to try and click over here, and you can click to your heart's content, nothing's going to happen. You have to choose active down at the bottom. So it's turned on some tax numbers for us. We're going to keep scrolling down. We're going to turn on a few more that most townships use. Now, this local government aid, I just want to bring your attention to it. You are all townships. Never use that. That is a city number, all right? When we get our town aid, there's actually a number for it right here. So we're going to click and turn on a couple of different numbers. Let me get my screen to the right position here. When we get aids, when money comes in that's not our tax money, it comes either from the federal government, which you can see federal here in the gray bar, that's a header. The state government, you can see that there. Or it comes from IGR is intergovernmental revenue from other local government units. So money from the county will come in down here. We're going to focus on mainly state payments right now because state intergovernmental revenue is something all of us receive. So in this case, I'm going to click on town aid. I'm going to hold down the control and hit state payment in lieu of taxes. Sometimes on money you receive, you'll see payment in lieu of taxes, or abbreviated PILT, PILT. That's what that is. I'm going to pick the ag market credit. I'm going to pick the municipal state aid for streets. Remember, my control key is still down as I pick these. That's your gas tax or your road allotment are the two common names. And let's see, is there anything else I want to pick up here? There's all sorts of things. You will get to know your township and know which one of these you need, which of these you need the most. I'm going to activate those. You see those numbers come on. I'm going to come down here. Now, I know that I receive a SCORE grant from my county. It's not a county grant for highways, so that's not appropriate. And it says other county grants and aids here. Well, I could use that number, but I don't like to have to remember things forever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new account number. I want you to notice this is the 33,600 area. I know it's 33,600, but I will call it 33,600. I will abbreviate things like that. I know that's the area that I want to put it in. So I'm going to choose new account number, and I'm going to add a number that has the name of the grant that my township receives so that I can just put it straight in here and I don't have to think every year, where does it belong? Excuse me. So I'm going to choose the new account number tab up here. Now I could just put in a number here, but I'm going to show you how the wizard works. So let's use the wizard to help us figure out where the account number belongs and what the account number should be. So what type of fund will this be using? Well, this is a governmental fund, okay? This is a general fund is what's going to receive this money. So we're going to choose that and choose next. What type of fund is this for? Well, this is for account for tracking receipts. That's going to tell CTAS if it needs to belong in the 3 area or the 4 area for 30,000 or 40,000. Then I'll choose next. Is it a property tax? No. Is it a license? No. Is it from another governmental entity? Yes, it is. This is a county grant for recycling. Okay. So we're going to choose next. And then it wants to know, does it come from federal, state, or county, or a different local government? This is a county grant. So we're going to choose county. And it's going to show us the right section of the chart of accounts. And we can choose what account number. Now it's coming up with 33,601, which is fine. I kind of would like it to be between the 33,620 and 33,630. No reason other than that's where I would like it to be. Plus, when I look at my chart of accounts, way over on the far right, I can see what line number this will go on for my year-end reports. So I'm going to change this number and I'm going to put in 33,625. because that's going to put it right where I would like to see it. And for the description, instead of going and using other county grants and aids, I'm just going to put in score grant from county, because I know what score grant means. That's my recycle grant. And that's all. That way, every year I can just go in and find this number. I'll hit save. Says the account number has been saved successfully. And now when I go to my account number list, you're going to see, oh, I guess I put 35. Okay, so I put 35, I wanted 25. If you do something like that, it's really not hard to change. Now, I realize I just went in and double clicked. So let's do it. You can highlight and choose edit, view edit down at the bottom. I've got a bar from Zoom showing up over my buttons at the bottom. So anyway, there's a view edit, so highlight and choose view edit, or if you double click, it just comes up. I like to double click. So now I'm going to put this back to the 33,625 that I had intended it to be. I'll hit save. I'll tell it okay. Now you can see the edit account number tab is open. It shows the old number. We can see I updated it to the new. In order to force a refresh on CTAS so everything shows right, I need to close this little this tab here. And so I'm going to use the little X on the tab, not the X up here. That'll close the program. Just the little X on the tab. It closes the account number. And here we go. When we look, now my number is what I wanted it to be. All right, looking through here, another one that a lot of townships need are charges for services. We all get the filing fees every year. Well, they belong in this 34,100 area. So I'm just going to add a new account number. And if we look through the list, we can see these are all the ones that are used. However, I don't sell a whole lot of maps, okay? That's not something my township does. Actually, we don't sell any maps. So I'm going to highlight it and choose View Edit. Go in, and instead of sales of maps and publications, it's allowable to change these. So I'm going to put in filing fees. I'm going to call it filing fees so it's easy for me to look up the next time, and then I'm going to hit save. Now, when this account number comes up, it says it's not going to be updated, is restricted or predefined. If you've got your chart of accounts handy, it's easy to see which ones of these are restricted or predefined. This doesn't hurt anything when this message comes up. It's going to come up on everybody on occasion, especially if you don't have your chart of accounts to your side. So you just tell it okay, and you can hit cancel. It goes back to what it was and close this. All right. That means I can't just change the words there. So what am I going to do? I want to add another account. So I'm going to choose a new account number, and looking at this, I could go 34,109, but I like to end them in zeros if I can. It's really not a big deal one way or the other. I'm going to say 34,110. And I'm going to put in here filing fees. Once I have that, I can hit save, and now it successfully saves it. I'll tell it okay. I go back here, and here is my filing fees right here. It went ahead and added it, and it activated it. Now, the next area that we want to look at, so that's got some receipts turned on. Let's see, any others? One thing, this miscellaneous revenues, do your best not to use miscellaneous revenues. Most things have a place in the chart of account they can go. If you put money in miscellaneous revenues, you need to be able to explain what it's from. When we talk about adding descriptions to our transactions, your descriptions need to be really good, or else you're going to have a miscellaneous revenues total and spend a whole lot of time going back to research what they were. The proprietary fund revenues we really aren't going to use. We're going to skip on down here. Now, special items, extraordinary items, capital contributions, sale of investments, these are all things townships may or may not use. But we're going to now turn our focus to bills that you pay. In CTAS, bills that are presented to the board are called claims. They become disbursements after all the accounting is done and the town board has approved their payment. So while we're going through here, let's look at some of the main categories we pay bills from. The council or the town board. Well, that one's an obvious. We definitely need that. I'm going to move my screen a little bit so I can pick more than one of these at a time. I'm going to pick the council, the town board. I'm going to hold down my control key. I'm going to pick my clerk. I'm going to pick my treasurer. I'm also going to pick the assessing because I know my county bills me for that. And I'm going to pick recording and reporting. The clerks have to do that. I'm also going to pick the button for my town attorney. And I think that'll be enough for now. We're going to choose active, get those turned on. And now we'll go down and I'm looking through to see what other things there may be. 41,940. That is one when you have expenses like the electric or the power or things for your town hall, things that are essential for your township. That's a really good number to have on. So let's activate that one. And now we're going to go to our biggest one yet, and that's the 43,100 section. All right, it's on the screen. That's highways, streets, and roadways. This is the area you really want to take some time to think about what accounts you want. What is recording and reporting? Is it cemetery fees? No, good question. Recording and reporting, clerks have to publish things in the paper or send things to the recorder's office. That's what that involves. Cemetery fees, there could be another category for recording and reporting, but that's in another part of the chart of accounts. Okay, back to public works. Many townships have unpaved streets. Not all townships have paved streets. You're going to want this is one of those areas you really want the supervisor's help on, because if you don't have any paved streets, one, you're not going to use that number, but you can change these. The only one you cannot change is this ice and snow removal. 43,125 is where the state auditor wants all of our snow removal costs going. So while we're talking about it, I'm going to highlight it and we're going to activate it. And now I'm going to look at some of these numbers because I know I don't want all of these. We don't have any alleys in our township. I do have paved streets. I do have unpaved streets. So I'm going to turn those two on. They're not really the right headings that I would want, but I can go in and edit them. Let's get to alleys. I don't see anything on here about brushing or mowing, and we do that all the time. So I'm going to pick out alleys. I'm going to leave the account number, and I'm just going to change this to brushing. I'm going to make it active and hit save. See, this one also does not want to be. Why? Okay, version issue. Sorry, that's my error. I'm going to hit cancel and close this. Let's change some of these others. Street lighting. This one will change. Well, it is supposed to change unless that changed in the update. I'm going to turn this one into brushing. We hit save. Okay. Yeah, I want to close this. So, alrighty, you would want it to go perfect the first time. Anyway, so we're just going to add numbers. I know that you can change some of these. I mentioned I'd tell you how to check your version. I'm going to check something here. To check your version, go to admin, choose the admin icon, and go over to support, this F8 tab. I'm at CTAS 2021, and so I'm on the right version. You can't download the wrong one. That's a question that comes up a lot. So I'm going to go back into accounting and chart of accounts. And since evidently makes no difference why, I'm just going to start adding some new account numbers because I need an account that says brushing. We're going to go ahead and use the wizard. It's a governmental fund. Yes, it's used for payments. So I'm going to choose that. It's payments for public works, roads, bridges. I'm going to choose that. It's for roads. It's not sanitation. This is definitely for roads. And it shows me my numbers. So I'm just going to go with 43,101 and call that brushing and save that. And then I know when I click back over here, let's go with 43,102. We're going to add a couple more numbers. 43,102. I'm going to use that for my grading. And the other one I want to add is 43103. And I'm going to call that fuel for the grader, or diesel fuel. I'm going to save that. And let's add 43104. We're going to call that gravel purchased. You're going to come up with the better names for these. You're going to come up with names that your township supervisors want to see. And let's see. Oh, seal coats. So let's add another new number, 43105, crack filling, seal coats. They don't have to be the same, they can be separate, but that's going to give us enough to get going here. So now we've got some road ones turned on. Our sanitation, if we have gopher bounties and such, pest control is the account you want to use. So I'm going to highlight and activate it. All right, if the last treasurer has the current version, do we still have to set up our CTAS from scratch? No, you don't. If the last treasurer has stuff, your account numbers are probably on, your vendors and stuff are on, you will want to make sure that the right account numbers are being used because they do get updated from time to time. Would you put diesel fuel for plow trucks under ice and snow removal? It's a really good question. It all depends on how you want to account for it. You can put it under ice and snow removal, and we're going to talk about the next level of accounting, which are object codes, because then it doesn't, the diesel fuel I put here is one way to track it. I'm going to show you another way so you can choose based on your township. What would you use 43121 unpaved roads for if you have all the other things separated out? Judy, honestly, the only reason that unpaved roads is there is because the state had to pick a couple of categories. I would probably never use an unpaved streets because my supervisors want to know how much was done for grading, how much did we spend on gravel. Now, if they don't care about that breakdown, excuse me, you could just use the one called unpaved streets. These accounts really depend on what your supervisors want to see for detail and how far they go on their budgeting. All right, next up, we've got the pest control turned on. That's for the bounties. Or if you have to have somebody come and remove beavers and stuff. I'm not going to worry about some of these other areas. I'm trying to hit the main ones most townships use. Miscellaneous expenditures, if you have a cemetery, I noticed somebody asked that. We will go ahead and turn that on. We can set up some more things here too. Anything in gray, don't use those, all right? That's not what we're going to be using. And I think we're in good shape. Now we're going to go to the third level, which is called object codes. Now, they've got a check mark on wages and salaries. I get it, but unless you have full-time employees, we're just going to pick a few of these out of here. Everybody is a part-time employee. We're going to pick out some para contributions, FICA contributions, Medicare. Let's see, and I'm going to scroll down and just kind of move through this a little quicker. Office supplies, oh, employee paid federal and state income tax. Accessories, copying supply, printed forms, envelopes, cleaning supplies. See this motor fuel cleaning supplies. We're going to active these. And then I want you to look at this motor fuel one. Somebody asked a question a few minutes ago about motor fuels. You can use either the account number or for this motor fuels here, I'm actually going to block this out and change it to be very specific for this township and call this diesel fuel and save. That way we can see the object code's been updated, and that way we can choose to use our diesel fuel. Either you're going to see a few different ways when we get into the vendors. And let's see, let's turn on equipment parts, street maintenance materials, and engineering fees. We'll turn more on later as we go, but that's got us going. Program codes, you'll notice there's none in here. These are 100% by township. We'll talk more about them later, but for now we've got the basics. We're going to start a month of accounting. So when we get ready to do our accounting, the first thing that happens is we go to accounting and claims. That means we've received some bills and the board needs to pay them. Oh, before we pay them, we need to put in our people. We're going to go to payroll and employee. We're going to add 3 supervisors, a clerk, and a treasurer. So I'm just, now I need names. Davidson. Now you'll see that I'm not really putting in a whole lot of good data here, but that's because I just want to have some people going. Phone numbers are required. So I put one in. Social Security numbers or anything in blue is required. And so those have to be there. Now, the date employed, you don't have to have it, but it's kind of useful later. Right here in employee type, you want to choose part-time. Previous treasurer told me we need to do payroll before paying bills. Is this true? No, I don't care when you do it. You do need to get it done before, with the bills, but if you do it before or after, doesn't make any difference. Pay frequency, this is where you want to choose monthly. Now, if your township uses one of these others, you're going to do that. But keep in mind, if you have any full-time employees, you have to do monthly at the minimum. This is an hourly pay type. This is a bug in the current 2021 version. You cannot enter the pay types in here. I'm going to show you how we get around that. It's kind of a pain, but we can do it. It's not really that hard. How do I add a pay type for an existing employee? Unfortunately, you can't right now because of the bug in the system. So I'm going to show you how we work around that in just a few minutes here when we do a payroll. Taxes and insurance, everybody pays taxes. So you don't get to choose just we aren't going to pay taxes right now. Okay, that's not an option. Withholding FICA and withholding Medicare, we're going to assume that all of this stuff is being withheld right now. There's a lot of different options, a lot of things in CTAS and in taxes that vary. I'm going to assume that this particular person said that they're singled, they want everything withheld, they're in Minnesota, they have 1 deduction or 0 deductions. We have a 2020 W-4, you need both state and federal. There's 2 jobs and they didn't indicate any extra withholding. These numbers come straight from the new W-4s. We go to other and employer. Now, where it says para plan type, I'm going to pick that this particular one said none selected or none. I'll just leave it at none. And I'm going to move forward. I'll go to the accounting distribution. This is required on everything. When you're paying your town board member, I'm going to say this is one of my supervisors. They use the general fund 41110 for the town board, object code 103, that's for a part-time employee, and 1.0 to be 100% of his pay is coming from that. Question, since we have part-time employees, do we not have to do payroll monthly if we meet monthly? Was there a new law requiring monthly payroll if meeting monthly, even with part-time employees? The answer to that is yes. Wage theft laws came into effect in Minnesota. That means every 30 days, all employees are to be paid. There is an exception for elected officials, but if you have regular employees, you have to pay them every 30 to 31 days. That is state law. So back to this, we've got to the 1 point, we've got 100%. We're going to go to the next tab. One note here, if you try to hit save at this point, you're going to get an error. And you're going to see in this case, it tells you what the error is. It says we don't have a roll picked out. So we're just going to tell it, okay, don't panic. We're going to go to sick and vacation. We don't do that in our township. We go to official roll. You have to pick a roll for everybody. This is a town supervisor, and we're going to say save. You want the roll because you're going to use it later on. Are supervisors considered elected officials? The answer to that is yes, they are elected. Even those who are appointed to fill the rest of a term, they are elected officials. So we've got that employee added. We're going to add one more. Oh, well, we're going to add a few, but we're just adding 2 to get started. Sally Jones, address, example, Minnesota, phone number, a social security number. Now, as you know, these are all fictitious things. Date employed, we're going to put March 1st. Part-time, pay frequency is monthly. Now I'm picking hourly on everybody. No rhyme or reason. So this is, we're going to say this one's married. We are not withholding FICA. We are withholding Medicare. We're going to say Minnesota, 0 deductions, 2 jobs. The reason I'm not withholding Medicare is because this is going to be a DCP type of paraplan. So 5% is withheld, and then the township matches at 0.5. And then the account distribution, this is a supervisor. We'll pick 100, 4110. You can type or you can use the drop-down boxes. We're going to go to the official role, and this is another supervisor, and hit save. You'll find out, see, it knows I didn't put in a valid zip code. So I will go back to the demographics. See, there's only 2 digits. If I had put in just 5 and hit save, then we're okay. All righty, I've got another questions. Our employees are paid at a regular monthly meeting, which is sometimes more than 30 days. Is this okay, or do we need to start paying supervisor, clerk, and treasurer sooner? If the only employees you have are elected officials, as in supervisor, clerk, and treasurer, who are elected positions, not appointed, but elected. And when I say not appointed, I mean not filling somebody's term, but the position itself is elected. You have an exemption, and it's okay that it's more than 30 days. If you have, let's say, grader operators hired, or you've gone to an option B township with a hired clerk and a hired treasurer, you need to be paying every 30 to 31 days. Is it correct that mileage and other expense reimbursements are paid as claims, not payroll? If so, are they considered wages and required to be paid monthly under wage theft, or could they be paid quarterly or some other timing? All right, true, these are reimbursements. Expense reimbursements go in under claims. We're going to put a few of those in, and that is true. They are not considered wages. They are considered a reimbursement. They should come with a receipt or documentation telling where the miles and stuff were located. What is DCP and what does the 2 jobs mean? And can you explain what para is? I'm going to answer both of those at the same time. Para is Public Employee Retirement Association. When you are an elected official, you can choose to participate and join in para. 5% of your salary is given to that retirement, and the township matches another 5%. Elected officials make the choice. I'm not going to go into the para forms, but if you go to the para, PERAMN website, if you just Google that and go to employers, you can find all the forms and registration there. Second jobs has to do with the new W-4s from the federal government. Second jobs just mean I'm saying that this is a 2-job family. That's all that is. Next one, are clerks and treasurers still exempt from the 30-day rule if they were appointed and not elected? No, if you've got to look at the position, not the actual appointment per se. If the township is an option B township, meaning that the positions are always appointed, they are not exempt from the 30-day rule. All right. Now, what about appointed people pay at monthly meetings, or do we need to pay more often? I just mentioned appointed people should be paid every 30 to 31 days. All right, so moving forward, we've got a few employees added. We need to add either a clerk or a treasurer. And so we're going to call this clerk Cassie, whatever. I need to get this in here so that we can do all of our things. That is the one thing when you set up the program, it does take a few minutes to get enough data in to be able to show you what this thing does. But don't be surprised that it takes just a little bit of time to get your information in. Take the time, do it right. Now, this one is married filed jointly, not going to participate in para, so we have to withhold FICA. Minnesota, 0. This is, we're going to say 2 jobs because a lot of the joint filing people have 2 jobs in their family. Other an employer, I'm going to put none. The only reason I put none is because that means I don't have to worry about did I remember to put their para information in. 41425, this is our clerk. 103 1.0. We're going to go over to official role. We're going to make this the primary contract and choose clerk. All righty. Is para 5% matched by the township at the discretion of the town board or required? That is required. It is not at the discretion of the town board to let people join para or not. State law is they choose 100%. Next question. So we don't withhold FICA if they participate in para most of the time. I'm not going to get into a big para discussion here. We're only going to talk about the DCP program. There are other options at other rates for now. We're going to say if they're in the DCP program, which is the initials I used, yes, you withhold 5%. Yes, the township matches. If the clerk treasurer, would you select 2 jobs? I'm not sure I understand your question. The 2 jobs has to do with the W-4. I'm picking that. That has to do with when you look at somebody's household. So an example, my husband and I both work. That's why I'm picking 2 jobs on when it would say clerk. So you don't withhold FICA if they participate in para. That is correct if they are in the DCP program of para. There are some other programs of para in which they do have to pay FICA. So it really depends. Husband and wife are both retired. Then you're only going to probably pick 1 job. It depends on how many people are working. We only withhold FICA and Medicare. Is there a way to bypass state? No, that's against the law. So the question is, this is a common question I get from a lot of townships, so I'm not trying to pick on anybody. A lot of people say, we don't want to pay state and federal taxes. Well, I'm sorry, that's the law. You are always supposed to have that calculate box clicked and take care of payroll taxes as necessary. I realize some townships may never have to pay them because of they just don't make enough, but it is the responsibility of the township to take and do taxes the way that they are to be done. The only time you are not going to withhold taxes is if somebody claims exempt. I have an exempt employee, believe me, the exempt employees know exactly how to fill out those W-4s. You should have a state and a federal W-4 from every single person who works for the township. Other things that you should have from the township, I'm going to leave this one off. We'll not check this, and I'm going to say that they had an extra $15 they wanted withheld. So if somebody sends you a form and it gives you this number, this is on the W-2s or W-4s, I mean. Keep in mind, if these people, people get to choose how their form should be filled out. A clerk or treasurer, no one should ever be deciding how somebody's payroll form should be filled out. The town board, and I've heard this from people before, does not get to say, well, we're all exempt. That's not how it works. All right. IRS rules are you have got to pay your taxes and do things the way you're supposed to. Tax state. I knew I forgot something. See, the error buttons here are really nice. And we'll see. Here we go. I forgot to put in Minnesota and 0. So we're going to go ahead and save. Now it's saved successfully. All right. Thank you very much. And you'll notice that I do appreciate people letting me know I forgot something, and the program won't let you go on. Now I think, how many people do I have? I need 1 more supervisor. So let's add Chris, and this is going to be our last Christopher address. We're going to have, the reason I want all of these supervisors on here is because I want you to see how this works And we're going to let the program do a lot of the work for us on some of this stuff. Treasurer's marked as supervisor. Thank you. I will fix that. It's not, as you can see, when you get going and you're not paying attention to what you're doing, you're just trying to type quickly, you make mistakes. Okay, not a problem. We're going to fix those. Minnesota, 0 deductions. I'm not going to fill. I'm filling out very minimal information on these forms in case you weren't sure about that. 100, 41,110, 103, 1.0. And we're going to go official role. This one's a supervisor. Here we go. Save. And let's go to the employee list. And this is why I give them last names of their position so that yeah, he's got a treasurer. I put it wrong in the account distribution though, didn't I? All right, 41510, treasurer. Okay, we've got the right numbers. We've got everybody in here. Now we're going to go through and we can do payroll first. Might as well while we're here. Let's add a payroll. We're going to add a payroll as of today. Anything in blue must be filled in. When you go to screens and you see blue information, that has to be filled in. I'm going to say this is a March payroll. I'm going to keep it real simple. One thing I take time to do, and mainly because I've screwed this up, I put the check date in at this point. Once you have entered this, you have to hit save so that we're ready to do a payroll. All right. I always put this check date in because I have been known to forget to post something, then it's the end of the year, then it's in the wrong month and my quarterly stuff doesn't work. CTAS is date sensitive. You want stuff to go in the right spot. Now, before we get started in this payroll, we're going to take about a 1-minute break. Let you grab a cup of coffee, use the restroom. And so at 10:03 roughly, we will be back. Okay. Okay, can you hear me okay? And I know that was a really short break, but I just wanted to give everybody a second to move around a minute and sit back down. So if you had a question, if a township official is currently in CTAS as a full-time employee, is it okay to simply change the category to part-time now, or does that in fact impact other areas? All right, as a full-time employee, is this person a full-time employee in the payroll module where you saw me pick part-time, or is it just the object code? If it's just the object code, it's not going to impact anything. If you're changing it in the payroll module on the employee card where you have part-time or full-time, that's going to change the taxes because full-time tax tables are a little different than part-time. So it might make some changes, nothing bad, but you want to look and see if it's going to impact. It may not impact taxes at all. It all depends on how much the person makes. Next, what's the difference between a chart of account and a uniform chart of accounts? If you're looking on the CTAS page, the chart of accounts is updated approximately every couple of years, more often these days because of CARES money. And now we've got the American, there's another set of money coming through to townships here later this year. That's how the chart of accounts are going to be updated then again. Uniform chart of accounts, if you open that, it's like a 90-some page document, and that's basically it's definitions of what all those charts of accounts mean. All right, so they're both useful. It's just the one is like 10 or 15 pages. The other one is much longer. Alrighty, so we went in to do a payroll. We've got our information entered. We hit save. Now we're going to start. CTAS is really helpful. When you're going to do stuff, you just go down the list. All right. So let's update our payroll roster. That means let's pick who's going to get paid. In this case, we're going to pay everybody. So we're going to move them all over to the right-hand side. Now, if we wanted to, let's say we made a mistake. If you want to move them one at a time, you can do that. You highlight them and move them. I'm paying everybody. I'll hit save. From this point, I've done that. So let's go into enter hours and edit paycheck information. When I click that, this box comes up. I will tell you, anybody who is using a different computer than me is going to see some different tabs. I'm going to talk very, very basic payroll here. I'm not going into editing how you split up taxes, how you split accounts, how you change things. This is the very simple method. I am not showing override here at all. I'm just showing the basics. Remember I said in CTAS 2021, this gross pay, right now this looks kind of confusing for new people. So what this gross pay area means is, let's say that we pay a meeting fee of $75. Okay. Well, I just put that in wrong, didn't I? And we pay $75 per meeting. This regular hours spot is how many units of the amount. So we can see with one meeting, they're going to get $75. We can see the regular pay here, the deductions here, and here's our net pay. It all calculated. Let's say this supervisor also did something hourly, had to go meet a contractor, and it took 2 hours and they get $20 an hour. It's added that. Our pay has changed. You notice it's updated everything. All I have to do is hit save. It's going to save everything for that person. The next person gets a meeting fee of $75. Now, you can enter these in whatever fashion you would like, and the hourly rate is 20. In this case, this supervisor missed the meeting, so didn't turn in a timesheet, but did have 2 hours for meeting with that contractor. All right. So no matter what it is, it's going to calculate correctly. We're going to tell it save. Our next one had a meeting fee. Let's say this is our planning commission, that he is a supervisor. He's also a planning commissioner. So we end up paying him for 2 meetings a month. We just put in that it was 2 hourly. He had none. So we're not even going to fill that in this case. We're just going to leave it at 0. It stays at 0 over here. The net pay is calculated. We'll hit save. Next is, oh, the clerk I did wrong. Oh well, this is another supervisor. We're going to say meeting fee. With one meeting, $75 a meeting. Then we had the hourly, and they didn't do anything. We don't have to enter that, but we're going to. So now I want to go back up and edit the clerk one, because the clerk did not have 2 hours. We're going to say the clerk had 30 hours this month, okay? It adjusts automatically, not a problem. It knows how to save stuff. Can you default in the different pay items? Meeting, as far as a default, Amy, as far as hours, it really depends. There's some other ways to do this, but with the meeting rates not working in 2021, not really. If I think that's your question. If your question is, can you make it a set figure every month? Yeah, some townships do. We're going to go to the last one, the treasurer. We're going to do a meeting fee. One of those, $75. And hourly, let's say 8 hours. I have no idea how many hours. So here we go. We just did a payroll. All right. Very simple, very basic. Everybody's got time in. We're going to hit close. First thing we want to do is view our payroll register and see how it's looking. I usually leave this in landscape and look at it on the screen. When I look at it, now the first report you run in CTAS of the day takes a little bit more time. You're seeing this isn't zapping in there real quick. It'll go faster later. Here's our payroll register. We can see the total hours plus meeting is what the hours is. We see the gross pay. We see if there's overtime, not really applicable unless you have road graders and stuff. And it depends on your township size. A couple of them are on para. We can see federal taxes only really applied to the treasurer here. Medicare applies to everybody. Nobody had state tax withheld, no insurance, union dues. Here's our net pay. There's our final net pay numbers. So everything's looking okay. I know that the payrolls I didn't put up high enough to have state taxes withheld. I am going to make a change in one of them just so you see that it does work. We're going to throw it on the clerk. We're going to change this to 120 hours. That should give us enough so that federal comes out. We'll go into the payroll register, take a look. You'll notice this time it comes in a whole lot faster. Now we've got some federal tax being withheld. All right. Now remember, the treasurer had a fixed amount of federal tax being withheld. So that gets added to whatever the total is. So we look, it looks right. We're going to hit print paychecks, print pay stubs. Now, if you don't print paychecks, but you write them, which is fine, you're going to choose print only the pay stub and hit preview. It's going to give you all of this information here, which is required by Minnesota wage theft. Print these out and hand them out with the checks if you don't use CTAS checks, all right? It's got all the information that they are supposed to have right there for you. Now, if you do checks, you don't have to do the pay stub. You can hit preview. I'm not adjusting anything. And you'll see here's a check written out, Clerk Casey. It's got the information just like the paycheck stubs. All right. What checks does CTAS use? There is a list on the CTAS webpage. There's approved check vendors down at the bottom of that page where you go to get the form, and you can that tells you who you can order forms from and who's approved. When you get through these, you can scroll through using these arrows up here. These will move you forwards or backwards. So we can scroll through and take a look. We can go to the very end and we can kind of take a look at things before we print them. Once you're ready, you're going to use the print icon for print report. And it's going to come up and ask you what printer you want to use. In this case, I'm going to print it to PDF. I would put my check paper in, and then you're just going to hit print. And it's going to develop. You're going to see the little button. Now, in this case, it wants to know about what I'm going to name it because I did a PDF. But you're going to see this will print out just right away for you. The hardest thing is making sure you adjust your printer if necessary. All right, so we printed our checks. All right, let's get back to the right screen. I'm sure you guys are still on the screen. And so that's our print checks. Once we have our checks printed, we need to add the check number. Here's the reason I add that date over here where it says check date. Right here it says check date. You can change this if you want, but where people get into trouble is forgetting to do it for months. So I'm going to just use check number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, I hit save. That's good. Next comes the payroll register. You are going to want to print one of these for your record to retain. You'll see it looks the same as before, only now the check numbers are there. I'm going to close this up. I'm going to close this. Then you get to the net pay account distribution report. I don't care if you do this by employee, by account, play with CTAS, try the different reports. I'm going to leave it at the generic by account and hit preview. Here you're going to see, all right, here's the 3 supervisors. There's their 3 checks. Here's the next people. Here's their checks. Here is the key piece. This form gets printed off for the supervisors to sign. All right. This is why we take the time to pick the right role and everything. They're going to sign this piece. The supervisors do not get the payroll register. They only get this piece and the timesheets. All right. The payroll register is private data. So once we've done that, we've got all of our information in. We're going to hit post pay to disbursement. That means the payroll's right, the supervisors authorized it, and we need to post these. These are no longer claims for pay. These are actual disbursements that were made. In here, there's rounding errors all the time. With payroll, everything's percentages. You choose where you want this to go. I want this to go to the general fund. Once you set it the first time, you shouldn't have to change it anymore. But I want the rounding to go to the general fund and wages and salaries. I'm going to hit post. It posted successfully. So now we're going to go in and look at it. Okay. I'm going to close this tab. And now to see it, you need to go to accounting and disbursements. That means everything's been completed, and look, right here they are. It says payroll period ending. I know that you can't tell who the people are. That is on purpose. So when the reports come out, private data is still maintained. So now we're going to go through and we need to add some claims for the month because we did the payroll, and we did it first just because I wanted the supervisor's name showing up on the payroll sheets for everybody. My treasurer, I think, does ours last. I do it after she does. I've never actually asked her before. When you get to reports and supervisors are required to sign them, how do we change the name of the supervisors? Remember it, I'll show you in just a second. Let me finish reading the question. Are you saying it's automatically changed when the person is chosen as a supervisor? This would be the same with claims. That is exactly correct, Catherine. When you go in to the employee card, which is under employer and pay and employee, when you go into this person and go over to the official role, by having them chosen as supervisor, that tells CTAS to add their name to the reports that have to be signed. If they're picked as a different person, they're not going to be on reports to sign. All right. We pay claims electronically, necessary to assign check numbers. You better believe it is. When you're going to pay claims electronically, you need to track them somehow to keep the clerk and the treasurer on the same basis. The recommendation there is to use some sort of either duplicate form or numbering system. And we'll do one of those here in a minute. So we're going to do some claims as of today. When you want to go in and add claims, the first step is to click Add Claims. Many townships like to keep claim numbers the same as check numbers. So I'm going to say we're on claim 6. Remember, we did checks 1 to 5. Today's the date for the claim. We always use the meeting date. So I'm going to say I've got a meeting tonight. Pay to the order of. You can use the drop down box. We're going to say this was to the gravel company. And this is for gravel on 145th Street. 18 tons. I have no idea. We're just making up something as we go. If you want something in the memo box, let's say account 4357, if that's your account number, 4356, then we're going to put in the total of $435. Then we get down to our distribution. In this case, with a gravel claim, it goes under road and bridge. We're going to look at our account numbers. We can scroll down unless we know what they are. And remember, we added one for gravel purchased, 43104. Our object code in this case, we're going to go down, and now I can't really see what this says. If I put my mouse, you see that double arrow? I'm going to hold down the left mouse and drag it over. That's going to make this wider so I can see what the object code says. So I can go street maintenance materials. I'm going to choose that one. I don't care about the program code. I'm going to put the amount $435. When I hit tab, you'll notice the difference is 0. As long as the difference is 0, you're good to save. So we're going to save it successfully and go on. The next one, it's going to automatically go up. We want it to do that. Pay to the order of. This time, let's say we bought office supplies from the office supply store. Wherever that happens to be. This is a new vendor. A real important thing is hit that new button. Put in their federal ID if you've got it. If you don't have it, you won't. Put in the address because you want all this information there. If you know, in this case, an office supply store, like if you run to Walmart or Office Depot, they are not going to need a 1099. So I'm going to turn that off and I'm going to hit save. The reason it's important to do it this way is that way when you get down to putting in all these account numbers and stuff, it's going to remember it the next time you come in. So I'm going to put, we had to buy a stapler. whatever that costs, $7.29. So we go into Fund 100. This is going to be $41,940 because this is a supply. The township, we have to be able to staple stuff. So we needed a stapler. I should have turned on an office supplies, I'm sure hoping. I think I missed it here. There we go. Office supplies, envelopes, letter accessories. There we go. Office supplies, $7.29. So those are some pretty simple claims. We're going to go a little more complex now. Claim 8 is going to be paid to the order of XYZ grading. They rebuilt a gravel road, regular grading, and whatever else they did. We're just going to go with these two things for now. We're going to say it's $45,000. So this is Fund 201. I just type it when I know the number. We're going to come down here to our options. We've got a grading number. So we'll put in that they did grading, that was just for street maintenance. And I don't remember what we use. There we go, street maintenance. And we're going to say that they charged us $3,500 for grading. Then we're going to go to 201. This time they rebuilt a road. So this time, because my board doesn't have a specific thing, I will use unpaved streets. We're going to say in our township, we used unpaved streets for rebuilding the roads. Now, here comes the interesting part. Is this street maintenance or is this a capital improvement? In this case, we're spending an awful lot of money. So this is probably a capital improvement or capital asset. We really don't have a good object code for that turned on. So let's go look, and we're going to add a new object code. There's two ways to get there. We can click here or leave this where it is. Up at the top, accounting's already selected. Just choose chart of accounts. And when we go in here, we're going to look at our object codes. And as we go down here, we're going to see some capital outlay numbers. Do you have to use object codes? Yes, you do have to use object codes for expenses. We're going to see capital outlay, all these. We aren't going to do capital outlays for, we're going to look. Here's a capital outlay for books. I actually am going to highlight it, double click. We're going to turn this active, and we're going to say capital outlay, new roads, new gravel road. It's going to be easy to pick out in our chart of, oh crud, I picked an, okay. The restricted ones, this, I'm not sure what I did because I know I have changed that in the past, but that's okay. And we'll just add a new object code. 595, capital outlay, new gravel road. All right, so now we just added code 595. We're going to go back into our claims that we were entering, and we're going to go into 595 because it's a capital outlay. The reason it's important to pick out the right numbers. When you go above 500, those numbers go in very specific places on the year-end report. Anything under 500, the state doesn't care what we use. Over 500, those numbers relate to year-end reporting. So it's important that you use the right numbers. So I'm going to hit save. It saved successfully. The next thing I'm going to do is we're going to pay the gas station. I forgot to add a fuel carrier, didn't I? So we're going to go ahead and put some numbers in here. We're going to, this is definitely a corporation. So we don't need a 1099. Why do I go to the trouble of getting those 1099s indicated? Because it just saves time at the end of the year. You're not thinking as hard. If you will take the extra time to do the work when you are initially putting things in, it sure makes it easier at the end of the year. Okay, so this is diesel fuel for the snowplow. Okay, we're going to be real specific here. $345. I don't know what diesel fuel costs, but this is a 201. Now this was for the snowplow. And in this case, we have a choice. Do we want to use the diesel fuel number here, We can do that and use it as road maintenance materials. That's one way to do it. Street maintenance. All right. So let's put this one in first. Now we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to pay the gas station. Now notice I typed the first couple letters, it automatically comes up, or you can use the drop down. And this was diesel fuel for the grader. And the snowplow. I don't know, they sent 2 invoices and we pulled them apart for some reason. Okay. So we're going to put one of them as diesel fuel for street maintenance. That actually should be for the grader. I should have done that last example different. So we'll say 345 there. The next one is 201. And this time we know that we've got to use our ice and snow removal. And this diesel fuel we put under, I know we have it in here, diesel fuel. Either one of these are going to be okay. However, if you have to be able to track your diesel fuel for that tax credit, I strongly suggest that you use an object code or an account number for diesel fuel so that you can get all the diesel fuel purchased into a single place at the end of the year, so it's easier for you to do your reporting. When the clerk and treasurer are each doing their entries, how does that work when someone decides to create their own object code? Do they need to let the other one know, or is there some magic? Unfortunately, no magic. It takes communication between the clerk and the treasurer. So I just got done in my township creating a couple new program codes. My treasurer changed an object code. We share that information with each other so that we can enter our records and our funds are going to stay balanced. It also, we do budgeting, so we really need to track stuff fairly closely. So we try and make sure the other one knows, so we each know what's going on. So those are our claims. I think I did an electric bill. I cannot remember, so let's go to the claims list and look. No, I did not. So let's do an electric bill. One of the things, most townships have to pay electricity of some sort. We're going to say this is electric for town hall. $150. Again, that's going to be in the general fund. In this case, don't pick any of those numbers that say electricity. You want to choose general government buildings and plant. This is a cost of doing business. Now on the object codes, there actually is an electricity number. Why I didn't turn it on. So we'll go in the chart of accounts, go to the object codes, pick the object codes and utilities, electric utilities, activate it. It's now active. I go back to my claim. I've got my utility activated. Right there, I choose it and I can put in my amount. If you use the notes field, will they show up on any report? No, the notes don't show up on a report. The notes show up as an asterisk. So let me put that on here so you can see that. Electricity for town hall. I know it's the same note and you would use these a little different, but that's got a note in there. When you mention state cares about codes over 500, object. Okay. When you mention the state cares about codes over the number 500, was that account number only or object code or program code too? Seems the object code is mainly for township budgeting and reporting. Is this true? It is true mainly. For the most part, it's true. If the object code is over 500, though, that relates to a specific category of expense and sends it to a specific line at the end of the year report. Account numbers, the state definitely cares what account numbers. We need to be in the right section of the chart of accounts. But as far as object code, program codes, they don't care what we use. Those don't show up anywhere for them. The object codes do. So they don't care under 500, but over 500, they do care. Do both the clerk and treasurer have to use CTAS? Can one use QuickBooks? Is there CTAS for a Mac? No, they don't both have to use CTAS. One can use QuickBooks. Just keep in mind, whoever's using QuickBooks needs to be able to balance funds just like you do in CTAS. CTAS does not come for a Mac. Can't be done. Well, it isn't being done. Let's put it that way. All right, so we've saved this. We've got our claims in for the month. So what do we do next? Well, we can see these haven't been approved yet. They haven't been posted, and none of them are void. First thing we're going to do is print claims. I know some townships don't like to do this because it takes paper. I like to do it because my treasurer and I don't have time to sit together before a meeting and do this. That's not how it works for us. So she prints these out every month. It's got the information on here. I can see the codes. If I have a problem with a code, I just talk to her and we decide what to do. Now, these things then get attached. She takes them. My treasurer does claims first. She takes the original invoice, staples this to the top, and makes a pile of them. All right. This has got some more information on here. Clerks have to fill this section out down here at the bottom after every meeting. They either do it here or physically writing on claims. There's a couple ways. I'm going to talk about the CTAS method. So she gets all those printed out, and then she'll run the claims list for approval. So I'm going to hit preview, and here's the claims that are outstanding. Here's the total. And again, here's the supervisor's names. So this claims list for approval goes on top the entire stack. That's the original invoices stapled to those claims, and the supervisors get to see everything in that pile. All right. Now she usually adds to this. Under here will come the payroll net pay distribution on top the timesheets. Those supervisors will see both numbers that they're concerned about tonight. The other thing that she does is she does put a little sticky note on top of the claims that says what the total of the claims list for approval plus the net pay distribution report is. So these go to the supervisors. All right, we're going to say that the supervisors said yes, go ahead and pay them. So you're going to send them all over to approved claims and hit save. What is the asterisk by the comp number? Good catch. So let's go back to that claims list for approval and look at it. Whoops, they've all been approved. So I need to go back into a claims, unapprove them, and then I can do my claims list again. That asterisk, thank you, is exactly what I wanted you to see. The electric company, if you remember claim 11, we put a note in there. That's what that asterisk means, is there is a note on that particular entry. All right, that's all the asterisk means. So we need to approve our claims. We're going to ship those over there, hit save. All right, then we're ready to print checks. We're going to do the preview just like the payroll checks. They come up. We can scan through them if we want. We just need to get those printed out. We're going to enter our check numbers. Here you have to put in who is verifying. So I'm going to put Lucinda. The date's popping up because that's the date of all the checks. We need to put the check numbers. The advantage of the check number and claim number matching, I'm going to go through here and make them match. Now, if you make a mistake and don't notice it, when you get ready to save, guess what? It's going to come up and tell you there's an error. This check number has been used. So you look for the little red dots. You see, oh, hey, this should be a 9. And then when you hit save, then it's going to update successfully. So the check numbers are assigned. We can see that here. They are approved. They have not been posted. They have not been voided. So now the board has approved them. The checks have been printed. They've been dispersed. We need to get the claims posted to disbursements. We're going to say yes. Now let's go look at disbursements. And here's all these claims. All right. Now, in this case, I want these to, okay, I did that without telling you what I was doing. If you put your mouse over the word check number and click, it puts it in order by check number, which is what I wanted for my example. So you can see here's the payroll ones, here's the other ones. When I choose date, the second field, I'm not sure how it does it for the second field, but I can put it in order by check number. I can put it in order by vendor name. I can put it in order by description. I can put it in order by check total. And if I hit again, it goes in reverse order. If I want to find things that I've voided, I look here. If I want to find stuff that's cleared and so forth and so on. Now, let's say after we get this done, we realize that the diesel fuel was put in for the snowplow in the wrong place. We have it under diesel fuel repair maintenance. And in this case, we do for the snowplow, that is a cost of ice and snow removal. And we really want to use that 212 diesel fuel code. We're going to change it and we're going to save it. Now, once we've done that, if we go back to our original claim and look at claim 9, it didn't change and we don't need to worry about it. Once these things have posted to disbursements, CTAS is never going to look at the claim again. All right. One of the biggest issues people have is they will go into claims, void it in claims, forget about disbursements, and it never gets voided in disbursements. Once the board has approved things, disbursements is the only area you're going to be making edits to. So let's say the stapler, we decided not to buy it. I don't know why, but we have to void this check. They lost the check. All that you're going to do is highlight the check and you're going to choose void down here at the bottom. It asks, are you sure you want to void this check? We're going to tell it yes. And all of a sudden it says void and the amount turns to 0. Okay. You cannot undo a void. All right. The other thing that you cannot undo is a delete. So if I delete this transaction now on my screen, I see that, it's really, it's because of my screen that it looked like that. It wants to be sure, do I want to delete this transaction? In this case, no, I don't, because I want to keep the void. That's a record. I wrote this check, somebody lost it. Okay. So that's basic disbursements. Your accounting and receipts are going to go real similar. We're going to add a receipt. In this case, I've got my receipt I see a question here. If both the clerk and treasurer are using CTAS, do we have to do all these steps so our systems match? We aren't able to see what each other's done, correct? That is correct. You're not, unless you're sitting next to each other doing this, you're not seeing what the other's doing. You need to worry about matching funds and matching disbursements and receipts and balancing the bank statement. If you're doing that, some of your descriptions might be off, but that's not that big of a deal. I'll show you a few of those reports in a minute. I just looked at the time, so I need to kind of move a little quicker. Let's say we're at receipt number 100. We're going to use that date. We're going to say this was received from our bank. We're going to say new. It's going to ask us for all this information. I'm not typing it in now to save time. This is interest on checking account. $3.51. We're going to put it into Fund 100. We had the interest number turned on. If you can't remember it, you scroll through here. It's 36,210. Program code's optional. We put in the amount of $3.51, and we're going to hit save. All right. How do you come up with a receipt number? The receipt number in this case, I made it up. My receipt number normally comes, we use pre-numbered triplicate receipts, and my treasurer writes the receipt out, and that's the number we use. By using the pre-numbered receipts, that way we know all of our things are matching. We're going to do another receipt. This one is from the county auditor. All right. This is going to be our first period taxes. I know they don't come until June, but we're going to make believe they came in March. We're going to say it's 35.5 came in. In this, when your receipt comes from the county auditor, you need to follow the breakdown that accompanies that payment. So we're going to say the general fund, we had our ad valorem taxes that came in as 3,500. Fund 100. Next thing we had was we had some delinquent taxes paid of $72. Next thing we had was under, what did I turn on? Mobile home tax, $37, and then 100. And where's our penalties and interest number? Penalties and interest on taxes of $351. All right. I wish their breakdown matched CTAS numbers better. If you're getting a breakdown from the county, take one of them, write your CTAS numbers on it, and keep it as your cheat sheet on hand. That's one of those things that you'll get the hang of. Are you going to show how to enter beginning balances? Yes, I am. I'm planning on it. So next thing here is, now we've done the general fund. We also have the road and bridge. When your money comes from the county auditor, that is based on your levy, okay? Your levy physically never shows in CTAS. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in our general fund, or our road and bridge now. That money came, and that's 25,000, 201, 31020. For delinquent, we had $156. Whoops. Yep, I did that right. 201, 31030. Mobile home tax, $64. 201. Actually, I'm not going to do penalties. Penalties and interest, it depends on your county. A lot of times those end up showing on the general and nowhere else. So we're going to do our fire fund. And we received $6,500 there. 225, 31020, 6749, 225, 31030. Remember, your county tax statement has this. You've got all of your disbursements there. This piece, whoever gets that first, make sure you and the treasurer, you and the clerk, whoever are talking, because you want this breakdown to be right. A lot of times this is the breakdown that catches people up on the end of the year when it comes to fund balances. I'm going to hit save, and the last one I'm going to enter came from Minnesota Market and Budgeting, Minnesota Management and Budget. Okay, we're going to say this is the ag market credits. $4,600. This one can go in general fund. It does not have to be split apart, but you do need to choose the right account for it, $4,600. The other one that I'm going to talk about is your town aid, which comes from, now, you notice I clicked the down arrow. Minnesota Management Budget's not here because I didn't hit the new button. So I'm going to say Minnesota Management and Budget. This time I'm going to hit new, and I'm going to put in the town aid. Town aid comes twice a year. So town aid always goes in the general fund unless the town board has ordered it into a different place. 5,600. All right, so now I've got some receipts in here. So we've got our receipts and disbursements. We need to put in where we started out the year before we run reports. So we're going to go to accounting and cash, and we're going to talk about where did our general fund start at the beginning of the year. Well, it says the current balance and all that, but we need to say what our balance was starting 2021. Anytime you put a balance in here, that is for January 1 of the current year. We're going to say our general fund balance at the beginning of this year was $9,500 and save that. We're going to give our road and bridge fund a balance of $35,000 for the beginning of the year and save that. And then we're going to give our fire fund a beginning balance of $5,000 for the beginning of the year. Okay. All right. Because your two management, good point. Because my Minnesota management names are different, will they search correctly? No, they won't. So we're going to go back in and fix that in just a second. So now I've put my beginning balances in. When I look here, it says the beginning balance. That means of the current fiscal year I'm looking at. All right. That does not mean any other time other than January 1. This is not, that's all that this is. Good point on my Minnesota Management and Budget. You notice how they look different. So I'm going to pick the one where I didn't save it. I'll highlight it, pick the one that's correct. Now when I save it, they both are going to come up as the same place. All right. Okay, so what are some basic reports we have to do at the end for the board meeting? We did the claims list for approval. We did the net pay disbursement. One of the most important reports, we're going to choose reports this time, financial reports. we're going to run a Schedule 1. And I'm just going to run it as of today because that's when all of our transactions were. This Schedule 1 is important that the clerk and treasurer are looking at every month. Why? Because it's got your balances over here. It shows your beginning fund balances for the year, and then it shows where you currently stand on each of these funds. So I know that if my treasurer and I are looking and her road and bridge and my road and bridge are 13,645, we're okay. But what tends to happen is road and bridge will be $1,000 too low and general fund $1,000 too high. When you see that error, it means one of you put the wrong fund in the wrong place. So you talk, you figure out where it is, and you fix it. All right. In this, I can see the total receipts for the year. I can see the total disbursements for the year. I see the ending balance, assuming all transactions that were listed have happened. I see an investment balance. This is not the investment class, that's a different class. And then we see the total balance. So right here, we've got everything. This is a good one picture place for the supervisors. Now, is this the checkbook balance? No, it is not. All right. If you want to know what your checkbook balance is, you're going to go to reports and cash and go to the cash balance statement. All right. Can we start on 4-1 and enter beginning balances from that day forward, or do you recommend we enter everything that's been received and paid for the year so we have it all in the system? I really recommend you do everything for the year, because since our beginning balances can only be entered on January 1, you are going to either have to enter some sort of correcting balances and make sure you're doing it by fund, or take the time to enter the first 4 months of the year. So here's our cash balance. This is kind of the checkbook register. If everything's paid, that's where our balance stands today. Is that what's balanced the checkbook? No. This cash balance shows, given all the disbursements, all the payroll, everything that's posted, this is how much money we have on hand. So they can look at that, look at the claims, now, keep in mind, you're running this, I'm kind of showing you all this stuff at once. Ideally, you'll have the cash balance and the claims. So the cash balance is the end of the month. The claims are as of today. The board can see, okay, you got $45,000 and $35,000 in claims to pay. Yeah, we got enough money. You can do it. These, I'm just showing you what some of these reports look like. Your cash balance is what your checkbook balance is going to be if everything is paid. All right. Your cash control statement. This is one of those statements we're not going to spend a lot of time here in class because this takes more time than what we've got. But this is when we're going to go in and we're going to look at our checkbook. This is what we use to show we balance to the checkbook. Those transactions we just made as of today are not going to be on the February checking account statement. So if I pull up the February checkbook, you're going to see that there are no disbursements or anything. I haven't cleared anything, but this is the statement that you're going to run. Notice over here it says total per bank statement, and there's places for supervisors to sign. What was happening is many townships weren't having supervisors check the checkbook, and so the state added this box on here to the cash control statement because they want supervisors signing that. Is there a CTAS user's guide? Yes, there is. If you go to the state auditor's website and scroll down on that page where I put scroll down on the presentation, down near the bottom, there's a link to the CTAS user's manual, unless they moved it. This website's been redesigned. So it used to be down near the bottom. It might be closer to the top. It's like 600 or 700 pages long, but it is a PDF. Just put it on your computer and you can go in. It actually does a wonderful job of talking about how to balance the bank statement in there. And then you can give us calls if you need it. Now, with the reports, outstanding checks and deposits. Right now, everything's outstanding because we haven't cleared the bank. But you'll see some supervisors want to see this report every month. This is one of the group that sometimes they like to see. They want to know what's outstanding, who hasn't paid their bills. What are some other reports you usually run? You're usually going to go into reports and receipts, and you're going to run a receipts register for the prior month. In this case, I'm just sticking with March. You all saw we've only got data in here for March. So I'd run a receipts register, and here it's going to list everything that has been received so far in the month of March. If it had splits, it splits them out. We can see the account numbers. It shows the amounts. These registers are really, really helpful because the board remembers what they ordered stuff to be, what they said, what they saw money was coming in on. The board truthfully usually doesn't care about what the account numbers are. They care about these names. Do they understand what it is? Current ad valorem taxes, we can't change the name. So you're going to teach the board members that means property taxes. Okay. I don't know why they decided Latin, but that's what they're doing. So that's what we deal with. You can print this. If you use this button over here that says export, if you click on that, you can make this a PDF if you look here, or you can send it into Excel. If you understand how to do all that, you just send it into whatever program you want, and then they're real easy to email back and forth. We do PDFs all the time. Online CTAS users guide was very well done. Yes, it was. The state did that for us back years ago. You'll notice a few differences because now we're in the updated software, but not a big deal. All right, we go to reports and disbursements next. We'll do a disbursements register. We'll run the disbursement register. I'm just going to use the default dates. You're going to see here's the different checks. If the check had a split, this is multiple pages. We go up here, we'll go to the next page, and we can get our total. But if checks were divided into more than one thing, which one of our checks was, here we go, this XYZ grading, it's got grading and it's got unpaved streets. It adds together to pay one check. All right. The next report that that's a good one to run, if you do budgeting, these interim financial reports are good. If you don't do budgeting, you just see a bunch of zeros here. One hint, if you're going to budget, and you can play with that module, you can get online and read how to do it. This end date really needs to be set to 12/31 of the current year. If you do not set this to 12/31 of the current year, what happens is over here in this budget column, and I'm going to move to a different page. Instead of, let's say you budgeted 50,000 for grading, if this report does not say 12/31, it takes that 50,000, divides it by 12, and whatever date that is, it prorates it. Most of the time, supervisors don't like it when they see, oh, there's only $15,000 and we've already spent 30. So that's why we always set the interim financials to the end of the year. So now I'm trying to get through some basics that I know you're going to need in a rather quick order. I didn't realize how late it was getting. Other reports you need when you get ready to do your payroll taxes. If you do the 941, you go into tax filing, you're going to double click 941, and you're just going to look here. What quarter do you need? Well, I'm running first quarter. Let's preview. Here's all the numbers you need to run your 941. You're going to log on to that site, and you're just going to enter the numbers just as they show. If by chance you've moved your year forward and these years aren't working, always make sure that you're in the right fiscal year. To check that, you go to admin, choose the admin icon, and go to system information, the very first tab. It tells you what your current fiscal year is. All right. When it gets time for year-end processing, so some of you may be using CTAS, you've got to send your report to the state. You go to the year-end processing. If your current fiscal year is not 2021, you're going to get it to be 2021, and you'll just run down these 3 files. So you'd click the state auditor data file. You have to enter your username and password, which I'm not doing right now, and then it's going to submit. These financial statements are not required, okay? However, very good idea to send them in. I just had a township the other day. We were having trouble. Turns out it was a bug in the CTAS program. The only way we knew is we had to get a hold of their financial statements from before. They couldn't reproduce them, so they either had to have the paper copy because something had happened to the system, which this is very, very rare, but this is an example of why you want to send those financial statements. Or since they were having issues with their system, I contacted the state, and the state was able to provide them because they had sent them. And then once you've sent your files, you want to hit the check submission status. And now this For mine, it's not going to do anything because I haven't set it up right and I don't have the right OSA code. Otherwise, what comes up is there's a nice little thing here. It tells you over on this side, it tells you when it was submitted and gives you a confirmation code. So back to reports. When you need to do your tax filings for your W-2s, when it's time to run your W-2s, you're going to throw everybody in there and you're going to hit run. And here comes all the information. You have two choices. You can run these on actual forms, or you can run them on paper and enter them online manually. All right. The other thing that you need is your W-3. Any of the reports that we need to turn in, this thing does the reports for. If I need to go, let's say an employee wants to know where they're at gross pay wise, or somebody wants to know what everybody's making, you'll go payroll year to date and choose the employee gross pay report. When you run this, it shows the name and the gross wages. That's all that's allowed to be shared by law, okay? Because pay is usually the deductions are private data. So which financial report would you use for the annual meeting? For the annual meeting, it varies greatly. Reports that are required would be go into reports, choose receipts, do the receipts ledger for the entire year. That's the first one. The reports and disbursement, you're going to do the disbursement ledger for the entire year. Or I'm sorry, register. Then that's the stuff that has to be posted because it shows all the checks, all the pay, it shows everything that you need to show by law for Board of Audit. When you get into financial reports, this is where it's going to depend on what the treasurer wants to produce. The treasurer is the financial officer and needs to provide the year-end report for the annual meeting. Some treasurers will do this cash basis reporting form. There is nothing wrong with doing the cash basis reporting form. It's got a nice little cover page on there. You can go through, you can see the property taxes are there. It's got some revenues showing in here. You go into the expense section. It's got some expenses listed out into main categories. It doesn't list them out into the real narrow categories sometimes people want to know about. It talks about enterprise funds we don't use. It shows the debt of the township if you've got any. It shows investments if you've got any. And this is the last page, so we can see we have no investments, but we have these funds and it shows where we're at. That's an option. Some treasurers like to run one of these interim financials. And what I have seen them do is they will take and export this to Microsoft Excel, because remember, you can export to Excel, and then they take this report and they'll have 3 years of it. So for 3 years, you can see what the disbursements were. So we spent, and normally, yeah, a lot of time is spent on the road and bridge. That's our biggest fund. So they can see that grading, they've spent 3,500 one year and 4,500 another year and 3,850 another year. The other thing that helps with these interim financials, when you put several of them together like that and you're looking, when the board's trying to figure out their levy, whoops, I hit the wrong button again. When the board's trying to figure out the levy, these reports help them. So when you pull up Schedule 1, and let's say this, let's make believe this is the end of last year. You're going to do Schedule 1 and the board's looking at the balances. Let's say one of these expenses changed. Now I'm going to go in and we're going to change this disbursement here for the electricity for town hall to some phenomenally huge number that, we know this is fictitious, but I do want to make a point here. So we'll save that. When we go into our Schedule 1 now and we run it, we have a negative balance, a big one, and I made it that big so everybody could see it, in our general fund. By and large, your job as a financial officer, and the clerk can do this too, it does fall mainly on the treasurer, but the clerk also is entitled. If you are running a fund in a negative balance all the time, there's a problem. If your fund is negative right before your taxes come, that's not a big deal. Some of us will have a fund go negative for a month or two, and that's really not a problem. Where you get into the problem is, let's say your general fund here is showing this negative 134,000 and you're only levying 65,000. There is no way that general fund will go positive in the year. Now maybe there you've got some payments coming from somewhere that it will, but most of our most of our money for townships still comes from taxes. So if this is going on and you've got a negative balance continually, and you can see it on the Schedule 1 real easy, the board is going to have to take some action, whether it be transferring money from another fund, increasing the levy. They need to set a plan on how they're going to deal with a great big negative balance. All right. Now, in this case, this probably is never going to happen because that's like a huge negative balance, but I just wanted to make sure you could see it. All right. Those are kind of the basics of running CTAS. You've got to go in, you've got to do the claims every month, you've got to do receipts every month, and you've got to do some reports every month. And you've got to do payroll. So there's 4 things that are every month. Beyond that, there are some modules online about investments and indebtedness that you can get into. Eventually, we're planning some more advanced CTAS classes, but everything that you need to run, this program is designed to do. It was designed by the state on purpose to do things the way that we need to do them in a cash reporting system. All right. So that's the basics of running CTAS. If there are any other questions, or else I noticed it's 11, so we need to be wrapping it up. I know I went kind of fast there at the end, but if not, then I'm going to go ahead, and I see one popping up. If we have CTAS questions in the future, who's the best contact? Any of us trainers know how to run this program well. We all use it. We know how to run it. We've all encountered problems with it. So either you can contact me, you can contact Petra, you can contact Lori. All of us are open to questions.
All
right.
3 trainers' emails and phone numbers are in every issue of the Minnesota Insider. Right up front on the index page, on the right-hand side is a list of all the MAT employees. You can find their phone number and email there when you have questions.
I think we're on the website too.
And on the website too, yep. So.
All righty, well, thank you all very much for your attendance, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Lucinda. Excellent presentation.
You're welcome.
And thank you, everybody. I'm going to end the presentation. Again, this will be live or it's been recorded and will be on the website here within a week or so. We got to process it. Thank you.